So good morning, John. If you could introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Good morning. Hi, Ned. Yeah. So my name's John Shaw and I'm the founding managing director of Chiltern Rangers. We're a social enterprise based in High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. And for us, life is all about communities and conservation. So working with local communities, and for us, communities is a really important word. It's groups of people, all ages, all abilities are welcome. And we bring these community groups together and take them outdoors into nature, into the Chilterns landscape, be that in the urban areas where they live, close to where they live, maybe even next door in the woods, through to some of the more bigger Chilterns landscapes, the chalk streams, some of the fantastic chalk grasslands, the rolling hills, that kind of stuff. Because for us, we believe passionately that we like to give opportunities to young people, people who don't have access to these spaces as part of everyday life. We think everyone kind of could and should. And we'd like to make sure that that happens to as many people as we possibly can. And in doing so, their lives has improved a bit. It might just be that day's improved. It's a better day for them. And that's absolutely brilliant. It might be if they can come with us on lots of sessions, then over time, their mental health, their well-being improves. They learn new skills, maybe even meet new friends. But actually in doing that, the whole point of this is that we're looking after the landscape. We're looking after the woods, the chalk streams, the chalk grasslands, all these special places. And that's really what we're about.
So how are you doing that? Do you work with schools and youth clubs and those sorts of things?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We work with lots of different groups throughout the community in lots of different ways as well. So we might work with schools where we might collaborate with them and other organisations, youth groups, but others as well, including corporates who come out and help give us some of their time. And just bring all sorts. The WI will give them talks, and then we'll bring them out to the site to do the thing we've been talking about. Rotary Club, that all sorts of people, lots of different ages are welcome. And actually, the magic happens when we bring them all together. So we might have a local interest group who just like they're based locally and they love the environment, and then we bring them together with a school group, and all of a sudden, instead of two groups, you've just got people working.
How lovely. So
It's
what are
brilliant.
you doing? What's the format of one of these days?
So generally speaking, a day for us is about 10 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that, because the time after that is lots of preparation, tool maintenance, packing, unpacking, traveling around the place to get to it. But so you've got those 5 hours essentially on site somewhere to make a difference. And a lot of the work goes on before the day as well in terms of bringing those organisations together. That's the kind of stuff, the unseen stuff that projects are dependent upon. It's that deep sense of partnership and relationship and trust that brings everybody together to then bring them out on site on the day or the days, and then get on with the tasks, whatever that might be, which will vary with the seasons and the habitats we're working in.
So what would an example be of something that you're doing at the moment in sort of late July?
So this is a great example of what we can get up to. So we've got a local youth group coming a little bit later. We've got where they're bringing 17 young people. Those kids who are coming out today are the sort of children who would be pupil premium. So they have maybe additional needs, or they're coming from places where life is not particularly easy for them. So they'll have school meals at school time, but then in the school holidays, there's a need to fill there. So the youth group we're working with, we'll feed them, give them a really healthy lunch, and then they'll bring them out with us, and then we're going to jump in the local river, the River Wye here in High Wycombe, and the kids are going to get involved in picking up rubbish, which, you know, there's a really important story here to tell the kids not to throw the rubbish, because it ends up in the river, which ends up in the sea, which ends up, you know, around the turtle or being ingested by the fish or whatever. So we talk about that stuff as well with them, so that they get the point. It's not just picking up other people's rubbish. It's learning and understanding the environment side of things. But then we're working with some other volunteers, and we're doing some in-stream habitat work as well. So hopefully come a little bit later on this afternoon, we'll have about 25 people all giving a hand in the river. And we've also got a small group of young people who are taking over our social media this week and doing a load of exciting photography, storytelling from their point of view, because I think it's really important that we hear young people's voices. So we've given them the platform and the tools, and one of my trainee rangers is taking them out every day this week to create hopefully some really exciting content, and they're working with those young people. So 3 different groups all coming together to make something positive happen.
I mean, that is so close to my heart, the sort of stuff you're talking about involving rivers and habitat restoration and young people who are really, having hopefully what will be a penny dropping moment.
Yes.
And it's typically something that I would assume could only be funded from charitable means. So I'd love to ask you about what we might slightly crudely perhaps call the sort of business model, but how do you go about funding these amazing activities?
But this is the tricky thing. It is not easy to do good things. We spoke a little bit previously about this. It's much harder than it should be to help improve the quality of people's lives and the quality of our environment, because unfortunately the business model of the world we live in kind of doesn't really make that very easy to do. So we do, like many other social enterprises and charities, rely on grant and trust foundation funding. Absolutely, we do. But we also mold that and make that go further by the way that we generate match funding as well. So we work with lots of different funders through the year. And then the way that it tends to work is that each person pays a percentage of a pot, and you get enough funders together to make that work. And then you can take out the people to do the thing. Mostly it's true to say no one wants to pay 100% of their bill. But they want 100% of the benefit. That's not a criticism of anybody. That's just the fact of life and how it is, which we understand. And it's about us saying, okay, well, we want to generate this change and this positive impact. How can we find a way to do that? And that's the mission, really. There's other things to do to consider as well, and that don't happen in the holidays. We do a lot of work with schools, for example. Schools are a good example where they will give us maybe 25, 30, maybe 50% of the cost of a project.
Yeah.
And then we'll go and say to a funder, right, we've got this amount of money, but we actually need this amount to make it happen. And if you give us the remaining 50%, then look at what we can do. And that might be, we can take out children with special educational needs, maybe that they've got social, economic challenges and barriers to engagement and inclusion in life, that we can include them and take them out. And then the activity is the key. So lots of organizations do this, and they might choose a sport to do, to get people more active and healthy and all the rest of it, which is brilliant and necessary. But not every young person likes sport, but they want to be a bit healthier. So our offer, if you like, is to say, well, if you come out into the woods today, not only will you get that surprise that we all know that the Teddy Bears Picnic gives us, but it gives you so much more, because we live in the Chiltern Hills. So you're walking up and down hills all day. You will get a bead on. You will know at the end of the day you've been working hard. And because you've done that to improve the quality of the woodland or the chalk grassland for butterflies or rare flowers or whatever it might be, you get that inherent well-being piece as well. So it benefits stacks massively, which is of huge interest to funders, that they can see that there's a social value piece, there's a collective community piece, and actually we're giving back to the environment in a really positive way. So it is quite fundable, but it's still harder than it should be. I always joke, really, Ned, that I should import single-use plastic items from the Far East and make an awful lot of profit and use that profit to prop up the social enterprise.
Oh, don't.
Sort of say it tongue in cheek, but actually, some people do that kind of thing in a roundabout way.
That's one way to make it work.
That's correct, yeah. But match funding is crucial for most funders, and it's not just the schools who want that. We also get funded from lots of other in lots of other ways. And again, there's nearly always a need for a percentage of match funding. It's just on us to then find out how we do that. And sometimes it might be bringing two funders together to say, look, funder one, give me 50%, funder two, give me 50%, and off we go together. And you can share the spoils, kind of thing. And
just a quick question about impact. I mean, it's very clear to me why you should be doing this and what the benefits are. Are you, when you're reporting on impact, are you going on sort of testimonial?
Measuring impact is one of these things that I find fascinating, and it's one of the things that we struggle to do in certain ways. For me, photographs and videos, that's the best evidence. Yeah. Actually, I'm not necessarily a big believer or fan of numerical, empirical evidence, because numbers and stats can be twisted to say all sorts of things. Actually, if you can have a photograph or some video of a number of people, again, quite obvious from that video that they'd be of different ages, abilities, whatever, coming together and doing something with a background of chatter and laughter.
Lovely. Yeah.
That to me shows impact. That shows that they're having fun. Fundamentally important. One of our core values at Chiltern Rangers is to have fun, because life is serious enough. We should have fun. We should work together as a society. That's all positive. That's when you get community cohesion. That's when you get positive community outcomes. Who wants to as well? People forget. I think, people come and volunteer with Chiltern Rangers or other organisations for lots of reasons, and one of them is to get away from things like questionnaires and quizzes. The last thing you want is to say, oh, did you have a good day today? How were you feeling at the start and how do you feel now? Do you think this has been positive for your mental health? No. Are you struggling with depression? No one wants that. There's a smarter way to do it. It's not always, there's still, the numbers are important. I'm not saying that they're not, but I think that the visual testimonial and that kind of impact measure is bigger.
I love that. And as they say, a picture paints 1,000 words.
I think it does. Particularly in our world, where you have that visual piece of landscape in the background and maybe close up, and you can string half a dozen images together to tell the story of your day. That for me is the way I would like to report.
Also about the biggest barrier to growth for Chiltern Rangers at the moment.
The biggest barrier to growth that we've got at the moment is actually our headquarters. So we are, to rewind the story quickly, that we are 10 years old in September, and we're a spin out from the local authority. And we've always known that the building that we're in has a sort of a limited shelf life, and at some point we need to move on. That's our biggest barrier to growth. We need to build a new premises, and that requires an awful lot of capital funding. And once we've got that out of the way, hopefully the barriers to growth will be much diminished.
In a weird way, one of my favorite questions, because I think it's the sort of humanizing question, is, can you tell me about something that went wrong recently?
There's loads that goes wrong. There's loads that goes wrong in the life of any small business, I think. Recruitment is probably one of our biggest challenges. Trying to find the right people, the blend of skills, but also characteristics. It's really important that the people who work here are empathetic and caring individuals because of the people we work with. And recruitment's really tricky. We've recently recruited somebody, but unfortunately they had to leave within 4 months because the commute for them was just too much, and they were able to get somewhere much closer to home. So that's always a big challenge, and you don't get that right every time. So that's just one of those things, that bit of trial and error. You do all the good things that you're supposed to, and yet it still doesn't work sometimes. So that's always tricky. The funding remains a big challenge in our world. Working with the different funders to get them to part with their cash is tricky, and sometimes that doesn't go to plan either as well. You spend a lot of time making what you think is the perfect pitch and the perfect bid, and they turn around and say, sorry, the demand is huge, and you can whistle, basically. That's
so demoralizing when you're putting your heart and soul into something like that, and it's a no, even if you're number two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a miss is as good as a mile, sort of thing. Absolutely. And there are other things that we learn. For us, our world is driven by the environment, and there are things that we can't control, but they really impact our day to day. The weather is one. That you're beholden onto the weather, and whether it's going to rain today to keep the trees alive that you've spent the last 3 months planting. Things like that, and how we're going to get around that. And if we don't, we look pretty bad because we've planted some stuff that's died. All these little things that don't seem huge, but they add up, and they keep that constant pressure on you to think about making sure you're doing the right thing, because you've got to keep, because the funding has come from somewhere to keep those trees alive. Indeed. And yet it's 40 degrees last year for a week, and there was no rain really for nearly 4 months, and all these pressures come. And also I think the funding that does come often doesn't come with aftercare budgets. that you're expected just to pull that rabbit out of the hat as a social enterprise or a charity. We'll give you the capital, but the revenue side of things, that's just going to happen, isn't it? That's what you're here for. That's why you exist. Thanks very much.
Okay. So many challenges, and actually so many more things I'd like to ask you, John, but I'm trying to keep these interviews down to about 15 minutes. So my final question is how can people find out more about you and about Chiltern Rangers?
So there's lots of ways that people can find out a bit more about Chiltern Rangers. We're really interested to hear, particularly from businesses, large and small. We do an amazing service called Be a Ranger for a Day, where people can come out and spend a day in the Chilterns with us. And that would be brilliant to hear from people on the back of that. And the way that they can do that is multiple. It's website, which is www.chilternrangers.co.uk, nice and simple. And then across social media, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter for as long as it's alive, Facebook, Instagram, and we're always at Chiltern Rangers. So people can find out about us in lots of different ways. And we're really, really interested to hear from folks who want to come and make a difference.
Fantastic. John, thank you so much. Really lovely to see you today.
No problem at all. Thank you.